What if the Great Pyramids were never tombs at all? What if they were something far older, part of a network that once harnessed the invisible currents of the earth itself? Beneath layers of sand and silence, an architecture of impossible precision still breathes, stones aligned with the stars, chambers tuned to frequencies we can no longer hear. These were not random monuments of vanity, but nodes in a forgotten system, a grid of power and resonance stretching across continents. From Egypt to Mexico, from Sudan to China, they whisper the same geometry, the same language carved into stone. Energy, not death. For centuries, archaeologists have called them tombs, temples, or symbols of kingship. But what if the truth lies deeper in vibrations, magnetism, and sound? What if the ancients once tapped into a planetary current, using the very crust of the Earth as a conductor? The Black Pyramid Network, that is what some researchers now call it, an ancient global web of structures possibly built to collect, store, or transmit a form of energy long forgotten. Were these civilizations in contact? Or did they each rediscover the same secret, that the Earth itself hums with hidden power? Across desert sands and jungle ruins, the stones seem to remember something we have forgotten. This is not a story about myth. It is a story about resonance, about the idea that power, in its oldest form, may not have been fire or steam, but harmony. This is historic sleep. Welcome. If you're drawn to stories like these, the ones that live in the shadows between what we see and what was made to disappear, feel free to like and subscribe only if it feels right, and let me know in the comments where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now. I love seeing our little map of watchers light up around the world. It begins with a shadow, a dark, geometric silhouette rising against the endless horizon of the desert, the Black Pyramid of Egypt. Few have heard of it, fewer still have stood before it. Hidden away near Dashur, it predates the smooth perfection of Giza, its sides fractured and collapsing under the weight of time. Yet even in ruin, it radiates something unsettling, a silence too deliberate, an energy that seems to hum beneath the wind. When explorers first entered its chambers, they found no treasures, no inscriptions, no sarcophagus worthy of a king. Just voids, tunnels, and a strange magnetic pull that caused compasses to twitch. In the official narrative, it was an architectural failure, a miscalculated experiment by Pharaoh Amenemhat III. The limestone casing darkened by oxidation, the core eroded, the structure abandoned. But those who look beyond the surface see something else, a prototype, a test site for a kind of structure that may not have been a tomb at all. Beneath its broken angles, some researchers detect evidence of vibration, resonant chambers carved with mathematical precision, corridors aligned not for ceremonial procession, but for sound. When sound waves were played inside its passageways, instruments recorded standing frequencies that amplified without echo, as if the pyramid itself were alive, responding, tuning, resonating. This discovery was dismissed as coincidence, yet similar acoustic phenomena have been recorded in other ancient monuments: the King's Chamber in Giza, the temples of Malta, the megaliths of Göbekli Tepe. Different continents, different epochs, the same frequencies repeating. Could it be that these ancient builders were not merely stacking stone, but sculpting vibration? The notion seems absurd until you consider that modern physics now accepts that all matter vibrates, that reality itself is structured by frequency. If a civilization long before ours had understood this, not through theory, but through experience, perhaps they sought to harness it. The Earth's crust carries low-frequency electromagnetic fields, oscillating through the planet like a heartbeat. If the pyramids were designed to capture or amplify that pulse, they might have functioned as vast resonant machines. The Black Pyramid, then, becomes more than a ruin. It becomes a clue, its very imperfection. The way it collapsed, the way its inner chambers differ from later constructions, suggests a shift in purpose. Giza's Great Pyramid, built not long after, perfected the form. 3 main chambers, each aligned with cosmic and terrestrial coordinates, each corresponding to acoustic nodes within the structure's geometry. Some believe these chambers were tuned to the Earth's Schumann resonance, the planet's natural electromagnetic frequency. Others propose they could have transmitted energy wirelessly, like Tesla's experiments thousands of years later. There are fragments of evidence, not conclusive, but persistent. Ancient copper wires found near Dashur, salt deposits coating the inner walls, as if water had once been used in an electrical reaction. Traces of unknown minerals fused into the stone, possibly the result of high-energy fields. When mapped against one another, the major pyramids of Egypt, Saqqara, Dashur, Giza, form a triangle that mirrors the magnetic anomalies beneath the desert floor. Coincidence or design? And then there is the alignment. The Great Pyramid points almost perfectly to true north, off by only a fraction of a degree. How did Bronze Age builders achieve this without compasses or satellites? Some argue by observing the stars, but the precision suggests instruments or knowledge beyond what mainstream history allows, and the alignment does not stop in Egypt. If you trace the line of the Great Pyramid's meridian, it runs through other enigmatic sites, Petra, Ur, and even Angkor Wat, a global axis linking cultures that supposedly never met. It is here that the idea of a network takes shape, not in myth, but in geometry. The pyramids of Egypt, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, the stepped temples of Mesoamerica, all rise from the earth in the same proportions, governed by the same mathematics of 4, 3, and 2. These ratios define not just architecture, but harmony, the musical intervals of the ancient world. To some, this is the signature of an energy system, one that transformed landscape into instrument, tuning the planet itself. Of course, the modern academic view resists this. Egyptologists insist the pyramids were symbolic, political, funerary. They dismiss the acoustic anomalies as accidents of construction. They call the alignments coincidence, the materials natural. And perhaps they are right. But what if, as so often happens, the truth lies between interpretations, part ritual, part technology, part communication with the unseen? When early travelers wrote of the pyramids, they spoke not of death, but of vibration. The Greek historian Herodotus called them machines that lift the soul. Later, Arab chroniclers described them as repositories of knowledge from the age before the flood. In local folklore, they were said to hum at night, a low sound like wind through a reed. When modern recording equipment was brought inside the Great Pyramid, it captured subsonic frequencies below the threshold of human hearing, tones that cause physiological changes in the brain, inducing calm, focus, even visions. Was this a coincidence, or a remnant of an ancient understanding that sound itself could open the mind? The Black Pyramid may hold the key precisely because it failed. Its angle was too steep, its core too weak. But imagine if those who built it were experimenting, testing the threshold where stone meets resonance. The later pyramids could be seen as refinements, adjusting slope and volume until the energy stabilized. Across Egypt, similar structures appear. Smaller, less ornate, scattered like components of a vast unseen machine. Some lie buried, others dismantled. All share a strange feature: subterranean chambers filled with quartzite and granite, materials that generate electrical charge when compressed. Piezoelectricity, that's the modern term. The same principle that powers wristwatches and sensors. Could the ancients have known this effect? It seems impossible, yet they used quartz everywhere, in amulets, in temple floors, in sacred vessels. When struck or compressed, quartz emits an electrical spark. Inside a pyramid's resonance chamber, those vibrations could multiply. Perhaps that was the point. A way to draw power not from combustion, but from the planet's own pulse. Some evidence hints at this possibility. In 1924, British archaeologist Sir Flinders Petrie discovered traces of electrical scorching on granite blocks near the Giza Plateau. Thin, glassy burns, as if from high voltage. In the 1990s, Japanese engineers conducting radar surveys found cavities beneath the Sphinx that echoed like metallic chambers. And in the last decade, satellite imaging from the European Space Agency revealed subsurface lines of magnetic disturbance radiating from Dashur to Abu Rawash, all converging on the Nile. Could the river itself have been a conductor? The ancients revered it as the source of life, but also of energy. The Nile's seasonal flow created immense electromagnetic potential as minerals moved through water. Some physicists have proposed that the pyramid network was built along ley lines, zones of high geomagnetic tension. If true, the builders were not guessing. They were mapping the invisible skeleton of the Earth. The more one studies these alignments, the less they seem random. The Great Pyramid, the Temple of Heliopolis, and the ruins at Tanis form a perfect arc of 33 degrees. That number recurs in sacred architecture worldwide. The angle of pyramids, the division of temples, even the layout of megaliths in Britain and France. A universal constant, perhaps, encoded by cultures that somehow shared a forgotten blueprint. But if such a network existed, what was its purpose? Was it meant to power something or someone? Some speculate that it could have been a communication grid, transmitting energy or information across the globe. Others imagine it as a planetary stabilizer, harmonizing Earth's frequency to prevent catastrophe. There are even those who whisper that these structures were built not by kings, but under their names, by an older intelligence, one that understood how to shape matter through sound. Of course, no one can prove it. The stones remain mute. But sometimes silence says more than words. When you stand inside the Black Pyramid, you feel something ancient pressing against the air, a weight of intent. It is as if the structure remembers its purpose, even if we do not. Perhaps that is the real mystery. Not whether the pyramids were power stations, but whether we still know how to listen. The ancients may have built in stone, but their language was vibration, a dialogue with the planet itself. To rebuild that connection, we would have to unlearn much of what we think we know about energy, technology, and history. And so the investigation begins. The Black Pyramid is not the end of the story. It is the entrance. From here, the path leads outward, across oceans and epochs, following the same hidden geometry to lands where other pyramids rise under other suns. Different builders, same design. Coincidence or code? Next, we travel beyond Egypt, to the sands of Sudan, where forgotten pyramids stand like black teeth against the horizon. Their proportions mirror those of Dashur. Their stones hum in the heat. Some say they were built by descendants of the same engineers, carrying forward a knowledge that once linked an entire planet in resonance. But before we leave, one last question lingers in the desert air. If the Black Pyramid was not a tomb, then what was buried beneath it, and why was it sealed so completely? The answer may wait in the next shadow, at the edge of the map. Far to the south, beyond the crowded monuments of Giza and the polished stones of Memphis, the desert bleeds into a harsher realm, Nubia. Here, in the shifting sands of modern Sudan, hundreds of smaller, sharper pyramids rise from the dunes, their tips fractured, their bases swallowed by time. They belong to a forgotten kingdom, Kush, or as the ancients once called it, the land of the Black Pharaohs. Most textbooks mention it only as Egypt's shadow, a distant echo of the Nile civilization. Yet if you look closer, the echo seems to speak first. The pyramids of Meroa, Napata, and Nuri stand aligned not with Egyptian patterns of death, but with the stars of Sirius and Canopus, celestial markers tied to floods, magnetism, and cycles of power. They are narrower, steeper, their stone darker, richer in iron. To some researchers, this is no coincidence. Iron, after all, is the most magnetic of the Earth's elements. These pyramids are not lifeless rock. They are crystalline, ferrous structures anchored in veins of magnetic ore that run beneath the Nubian desert. And if the Egyptian pyramids were designed to harness telluric energy, the subtle current of the planet, then the Kushite pyramids might have been amplifiers in the same global grid. When the first European explorers reached Meroa in the 19th century, they found ruins of extraordinary density, more than 200 pyramids in an area barely a few miles wide. The arrangement was not random. When plotted on a map, they form clusters resembling nodes and circuits. Their axes intersect at angles that mirror patterns found in Egyptian temples and, curiously, in the megalithic layouts of South America. Some alignments follow the Nile's magnetic curve. Others point directly towards the Red Sea. It was as if the builders were mapping energy lines rather than mere geography. To modern eyes, the site appears silent, but instruments tell another story. In 2009, a team of geophysicists from the University of Khartoum conducted magnetic surveys around the pyramids of Meroa. The data revealed subtle but consistent fluctuations, geomagnetic ripples radiating outward from beneath the structures. The readings were faint, yet too ordered to be random. Natural magnetic minerals, the report concluded. But what if those minerals were deliberately chosen? Granite, quartz, and magnetite, all conductive, all piezoelectric. The same materials used in Dashur, Giza, Teotihuacan, and even in ancient Chinese mounds. It was as though the ancients had been working from the same manual, a planetary blueprint of geometry and resonance. Some independent researchers began calling it the pyramid grid hypothesis, suggesting that each major pyramid site functioned as part of a global energy distribution system. Not electrical in the modern sense, but vibrational, a network of harmonic nodes connected through the Earth's crust and atmosphere. When energy built up in one node, it could transfer through the others, maintaining balance like a resonant instrument constantly tuned to the planet's frequency. Skeptics, of course, dismissed the idea, but the coincidences multiplied. The pyramids of Nubia, though smaller, share the exact slope angle, 72 degrees, found in the step pyramids of Mesoamerica and in early Sumerian ziggurats. Their internal chambers, though mostly collapsed, once held stone platforms resembling acoustic resonators rather than burial altars. Archaeologists found no mummies, no funerary goods, only traces of burnt sand and metallic residue. The official interpretation calls these remnants of looters' fires, yet some of the vitrified stone surfaces show melting patterns consistent with high heat generated from within, not from torches. In 2017, a team of Italian archaeologists discovered a sealed chamber beneath the northern cluster of Meroa. Inside, they found a large basalt slab engraved with geometric spirals, a motif known from both Egypt and the Indus Valley. Beneath the slab, water seeped upward through cracks in the bedrock. The chamber appeared to have been deliberately built around a natural spring. The combination of water, magnetite, and geometry made some physicists wonder. Could this have been a kind of natural capacitor, storing and discharging energy along the subterranean river systems? To the ancients, water was life, but also conduit. In Egypt, the Nile was considered a manifestation of divine current. In Sumer, the Abzu was the subterranean ocean of wisdom. In China, the dragon veins beneath the land carried qi, or earth energy. Across all these cultures, the language changes, but the principle remains: energy flows where geometry allows it. The builders of Meroa seemed to understand this intimately. Their temples follow curves that mimic river bends. Their inscriptions speak of hidden fire beneath the waters. And their deities, Apetamak, the lion-headed god, and Amun, the solar force, are always shown emerging from pyramids surrounded by waves. Perhaps it was symbolic, or perhaps it was literal memory, a recollection of technologies that used natural elements as sources of power. Consider that the same civilization mastered ironworking earlier than almost any other culture. They forged tools without visible smelting furnaces, suggesting methods we do not fully comprehend. What if their mastery of metal went beyond craft, into magnetism itself? When you walk among the pyramids of Nubia, the air feels heavier, as if charged. Compass needles spin unpredictably. Modern drones sometimes malfunction above the central necropolis. Local Bedouins speak of voices in the stones that hum during sandstorms. At dusk, when the heat drops, the desert seems to breathe, a long, invisible exhalation that stirs the fine red dust into rippling patterns around the pyramid bases. These patterns, when photographed from above, resemble concentric waves. Is it nature or something deeper? Scientists point to wind vortices, but perhaps the ancients observed the same phenomenon and designed their structures to interact with it. The narrow pyramid angles, the sharp tips, all could have served to focus atmospheric electricity, much like modern lightning rods. In certain weather conditions, the pyramids might even have glowed faintly with ionized plasma, producing the luminous ghost lights recorded by early travelers. To those who witnessed it, such displays would have seemed divine, proof that the gods answered through stone. Yet for all their isolation, the pyramids of Nubia were never forgotten. Ancient Egyptian records speak of a southern power that provided the north with gifts of fire and resonance. The Temple of Heliopolis, dedicated to the sun, listed the lands of Kush among the sources of living light. These phrases are poetic, but could they describe something real? Perhaps an exchange of energy or technology between the two regions? There is one more layer to this mystery: the blackness itself. The Nubian pyramids are built from dark sandstone and basalt, unlike the pale limestone of Giza. The black stone absorbs and radiates heat efficiently. It also holds static charge longer. Some physicists speculate that if the pyramids acted as energy receivers, the darker material would have amplified the effect. In myth, black is the color of regeneration, of hidden power. Could the choice of material be symbolic of that? Or was it part of a functional design? It is easy to romanticize such ideas. But even within mainstream archaeology, there are oddities that defy simple answers. Why would a civilization build hundreds of nearly identical pyramids, most of them empty, in a region where resources were scarce? Why construct them in such density, one after another, side by side, if not to create resonance between them? Acoustic experiments performed at Meroa show that when sound is generated within one pyramid, neighboring ones vibrate sympathetically at matching frequencies. The entire field behaves like a chorus of stone. It is tempting to imagine that this was intentional, that the ancient builders were composing landscapes of vibration, tuning the earth as one might tune a harp. And if Egypt and Nubia shared this knowledge, what other lands might have been connected to the same symphony? Satellite mapping offers clues. When the coordinates of the Meroa complex are extended along great circle lines, they pass through Giza, Baalbek, and even the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan. Each of those sites contains stone platforms or pyramidal structures aligned to solstices and magnetic north. The same geometry, the same orientation, a pattern too deliberate to ignore. Mainstream science hesitates to connect these dots, because to do so would mean rewriting the origins of civilization itself. It would imply not isolated cultures evolving separately, but a shared knowledge once spread across the globe, a network of builders speaking a silent mathematical language. Some call this theory the Old World Grid. Others call it myth. But the stones, indifferent to debate, continue to hum. If the Black Pyramid of Dashur was the prototype, then Meroa was the amplifier. Together they form the first two chords in an ancient composition, a harmony of energy, geometry, and intent. The next note, some believe, was struck far to the west, where the desert meets the Atlantic and another legend begins, that of Atlantis's echo, the pyramids of the Canary Islands, and beyond them, the geometric terraces of the Azores. Could the network have stretched that far? Could it have bridged continents long before recorded history? The question lingers like heat above the sand. As the sun sinks behind the dunes, the shadows of Meroa stretch like fingers across the desert floor, pointing north, toward Egypt, toward Giza, toward the heart of the network. And somewhere beyond that horizon, the resonance continues, waiting for us to remember what the ancients already knew, that the earth is not silent, and neither are the stones that rest upon it. But for now, the black pharaohs sleep beneath their pyramids, their secrets sealed beneath magnetic rock and the hum of the desert wind. And we, modern wanderers, are left to listen. Across the sea, beyond the deserts and the valleys of the Nile, another kind of pyramid rises, not in stone, but in volcanic earth and basalt, surrounded by jungle mist and the cries of unseen birds. Teotihuacan. Its very name, given centuries later by the Aztecs, means the place where gods were born. Yet no one knows who built it or why. Long before the Aztecs, before even the Maya, this city of perfect geometry had already fallen silent. The avenues stretch for miles in precise alignment with celestial coordinates. The Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon mirror the shape of Orion's belt, just as the pyramids of Giza do. Coincidence, they say. But how many times can coincidence repeat before it becomes a pattern? Beneath Teotihuacan runs a tunnel, a hidden artery discovered in 2003, sealed with boulders for almost 2,000 years. When archaeologists descended into its darkness, they found walls coated with glittering pyrite, the mineral known as fool's gold. Under torchlight, it shimmered like a starry sky. But pyrite is also conductive. It responds to electricity, reflecting light in patterns that seem almost deliberate. In some chambers, liquid mercury pooled in channels cut into the stone, creating reflective surfaces that behave like mirrors, but also conductors. Modern science recognizes mercury's ability to transmit electricity. Ancient mythology calls it the metal of transformation, the blood of gods. What was this tunnel for? Officially, a ceremonial passage, a symbolic journey to the underworld. But the structure feels engineered, not decorative. Sensors detected traces of magnetite and hematite, the same materials found in the Black Pyramid and in Meroa. The combination of magnetite, mercury, and pyrite would create a strong electromagnetic field, especially when exposed to natural currents or seismic vibrations. It is as though the builders of Teotihuacan were constructing a resonant machine, one that interacted with both the earth below and the sky above. At the city's heart, the Avenue of the Dead aligns almost perfectly with the point where the sun sets on the day of the zenith passage, when it stands directly overhead. The layout is not random. When viewed from above, the city forms a grid based on the number P, with repeating intervals of 57.5 meters, a ratio that matches the harmonic distances found in the Giza Plateau. The same geometry appears again in Angkor Wat, in the step pyramids of Java, and in the temple complexes of Cambodia. Different builders, same mathematical fingerprint. Could there have been contact between these worlds? Mainstream archaeology denies it. There was no trade, no travel, no communication across oceans. Yet the similarities in construction, alignment, and purpose persist. And the legends, separated by thousands of miles, speak the same language. Beings who came from the stars, who taught humanity how to build machines of the earth. In Mesoamerican myth, the gods Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca descended in fire, then disappeared into the underworld beneath Teotihuacan to ignite the new sun, to restart the cycles of time. Some researchers suggest these stories might encode memories of a real event, the activation of a planetary energy system, a reset of some kind, after catastrophe. The birth of the gods could have been the rebirth of civilization itself, rising again from ruin. When scientists studied the orientation of the pyramids, they noticed something strange. The Pyramid of the Sun is offset by 15.5 degrees from true north, the same deviation found in ancient Chinese pyramids near Xi'an and also in certain Egyptian structures. This shared angle corresponds to the inclination of Earth's magnetic field around the time 10,500 BCE, the end of the last ice age. Could these alignments have preserved memory of a global magnetic shift? Inside the Pyramid of the Sun, archaeologists uncovered chambers filled with mica, a silicate mineral used in modern electronics for insulation and radiation shielding. The mica sheets in Teotihuacan came from mines in Brazil, over 2,000 miles away. No one knows how it was transported or why it was placed there, layered like the components of a capacitor. Mica resists heat and electricity. When arranged in sheets, it can store and stabilize electrical charge. If the pyramid were designed as a resonant power generator, the mica would have acted as a stabilizing layer, a component of ancient technology hidden in plain sight. The deeper the excavations go, the more the city behaves like an engineered system rather than a settlement. Underground tunnels mimic riverbeds, directing groundwater along magnetic seams. Above them, the streets follow celestial paths: Venus, the Pleiades, Orion, each marking a frequency, a rhythm, a pulse. The entire city seems to function as an instrument, tuned to cosmic and terrestrial cycles. At night, the wind moves through the ruins, producing low frequencies that can be felt more than heard, the same range that modern scientists call infrasound. These vibrations can affect brainwaves, inducing altered states of consciousness. Perhaps the rituals of Teotihuacan were not prayers but calibrations, human beings acting as intermediaries, harmonizing with the Earth's frequencies. This concept is not unique to Mexico. In the Andes, the Tiwanaku complex and its mysterious Gate of the Sun align with the solstices and resonate at specific acoustic frequencies. In Egypt, in India, in Cambodia, all across the world, ancient temples were literally tuned to sound. When chants, drums, or horns were used, their echoes multiplied through stone corridors, amplifying into harmonic waves. These weren't coincidences of architecture. They were experiments in resonance. It's almost as if these civilizations shared a forgotten science of the planet, one that modern humans are only beginning to rediscover. The Earth vibrates constantly, a living frequency known as the Schumann resonance, oscillating at 7.83 Hertz. This frequency can affect the human body and mind, synchronizing brain waves with planetary rhythm. If the ancients knew this, if they built structures to amplify or tune into this frequency, then the pyramids, temples, and monuments across the world might once have formed an interconnected network of resonance. The question is, how could such a network exist without communication between continents? Some point to lost civilizations, the hypothetical progenitors of ancient cultures, Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu. Myths describe them not as nations but as ages of knowledge, epochs when the boundary between science and spirituality was thin. They say that after a cataclysm, perhaps a flood, perhaps a magnetic reversal, fragments of this knowledge survived, carried by survivors who became gods in the memory of later peoples. In Mesoamerica, they became Quetzalcoatl. In Egypt, Thoth. In Mesopotamia, Ea or Enki. The same archetype, wearing different masks. Even the architecture carries this memory. The base dimensions of the Pyramid of the Sun are almost identical to the Great Pyramids, a difference of less than 1%. The height-to-base ratio forms the same geometric constant that approximates the speed of light when scaled to the Earth's radius. Modern coincidence, or deliberate encoding. If the builders of Teotihuacan inherited knowledge from an older civilization, they may have embedded this information in stone, not as superstition but as preservation. When Spanish conquistadors first arrived in Mexico, they asked the Aztecs who had built Teotihuacan, The answer was simple. We do not know. It was built by giants in the age before the sun. Giants, not necessarily in stature, but perhaps in understanding. The Aztecs treated the site as sacred, performing rituals to keep the energy alive. Even they believed the city had once drawn power from the heavens. Some modern physicists have begun re-examining these sites through the lens of geophysics and harmonic theory. The results, though controversial, are intriguing. Measurements taken at the Pyramid of the Sun show strong ionization in the surrounding air and anomalies in the local magnetic field, subtle but measurable. During certain solar events, the field intensity spikes briefly. This has led to speculation that the pyramid might act as a natural capacitor, charging during solar storms and discharging through the ground. It sounds fantastical. But then, so would radio waves to someone from the Stone Age. If we imagine the Earth as a vast circuit, then these ancient structures could have been its nodes, collecting, balancing, and perhaps redistributing energy in ways we no longer comprehend. Whether for power, healing, or communication, the principle remains the same. Resonance. The universe itself hums with it, from the atoms to the galaxies. The ancients may have understood this as sacred harmony. We call it physics. The Black Pyramid of Egypt, the Iron Pyramids of Nubia, and the volcanic pyramids of Teotihuacan, 3 sites, 3 materials, 1 geometry. Each sits along a global band of high geomagnetic intensity. When mapped together, they trace a curve that circles the planet like a sine wave. Could this have been deliberate? A planetary harmonic grid constructed by unknown hands? Perhaps the builders knew that energy is not created but revealed, drawn out of the natural fields that already exist. They might have seen the planet not as dead rock, but as a living organism, its currents and pulses accessible through the right geometry. In that sense, the pyramids were not machines in our modern sense, but tuning forks, instruments that sang with the voice of the earth. Modern experiments using resonance can levitate small objects, create standing waves in fluids, and move sand into geometric shapes known as cymatics. Watching those patterns emerge, one realizes that sound can sculpt matter. What if the ancients applied the same principle on a colossal scale, shaping entire landscapes into harmonic patterns that aligned with the planet's natural frequencies? We have found the remnants, but not the purpose. Yet when you stand at Teotihuacan, on the Avenue of the Dead, as the wind moves through the ancient stones, you can feel it, that low vibration beneath the earth, the hum that connects continents and millennia. It is as though something sleeps beneath us, waiting to be awakened once more. Maybe this is the true meaning of the Black Pyramid Network. Not a conspiracy, but a memory of an age when humanity listened to the earth instead of conquering it, when temples were not places of worship but instruments of balance, when power meant harmony, not domination. And perhaps in rediscovering that, we are not inventing new technology at all, we are remembering an old one. The next thread of this mystery leads eastward, across the ocean to the lands of the rising sun, where immense earthen mounds and forbidden pyramids hide beneath forests and rice fields. Japan, China, and Indonesia, each holding another fragment of the lost geometry, each waiting for the moment when their silence, too, begins to hum. Beneath the mist-shrouded valleys of central China, hidden under layers of forbidden soil and silence, stand hundreds of ancient mounds, immense, symmetrical, and forbidden to dig. They dot the plains of Shaanxi, their geometry unmistakable. Pyramids. Some rise as high as 300 feet, flattened at the top and aligned with cardinal points. The largest of them, the so-called White Pyramid, is said to dwarf the Great Pyramid of Giza. Yet officially, it does not exist. The Chinese government refers to them as imperial burial mounds and has banned excavation for cultural preservation. But the secrecy only fuels the mystery. What if these are not tombs at all, but another link in the global network, a node of resonance buried under centuries of rewriting? The first recorded sighting came not from archaeologists, but from airmen. In 1945, an American pilot named James Gaussman, flying over Xi'an after World War II, reported seeing an enormous white pyramid shimmering beneath the sun. He described its surface as smooth, metallic, reflecting light, like polished stone or metal. Photographs allegedly taken by later pilots show vast terraced structures stretching across the landscape. When news spread, Chinese authorities dismissed them as misinterpretations. But satellite imagery has since confirmed what legends have long whispered. There are over 400 pyramidal mounds scattered across the region. Most belong to the Western Han dynasty, but some, based on erosion patterns and geomagnetic dating, may predate Chinese civilization itself. Their orientation follows precise astronomical alignments. The Maoling Pyramid points directly toward the rising of Vega, the star of the immortals. Another near Xi'an aligns with the constellation Orion, echoing the celestial geometry of Egypt and Mexico. Even more curious, when the coordinates of the Chinese pyramids are plotted globally, they fall almost perfectly along the same harmonic latitudes as Giza and Teotihuacan. Coincidence? Or a continuation of the same forgotten science, the tuning of Earth's grid through geometry and magnetism? Inside the few mounds that have been explored, archaeologists found chambers lined with a strange material, white kaolin clay mixed with mica. Mica, again, the same heat-resistant, electrically stable mineral used in Teotihuacan. In one sealed tomb, pieces of jade and bronze showed signs of magnetization, as if exposed to a powerful electromagnetic field. The official explanation calls it a natural effect of decomposition. But the phenomenon repeats too often, in too many places, to be dismissed as random. In ancient Chinese texts, the emperors are described as sons of heaven, their power said to come from the mandate, a resonance between ruler and cosmos. The Book of Rites speaks of aligning the empire with the pulse of the sky. The emperor's burial mound, therefore, was not merely a tomb, but a harmonic anchor linking heaven and earth. The ritual construction involved precise orientation, layered materials, and often underground rivers redirected to flow beneath the structure. Water, metal, and stone, the same triad found in Egypt, Nubia, and Mesoamerica. One legend speaks of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the unifier of China, who built a palace beneath the earth, mirroring the heavens above. The historian Sima Qian wrote that rivers of mercury flowed through his underground realm, representing the stars. For centuries, this was dismissed as myth, until modern surveys detected unusually high concentrations of mercury vapor around the unexcavated tomb. The site is sealed, forbidden to open, because the levels are still toxic today. Mercury, again the same element found in Teotihuacan's tunnels, used for conductivity and reflection. Could these rivers have once served a purpose beyond symbolism? a way to channel or store energy within the mound's geometry. Modern geophysical studies reveal that the Xi'an pyramids are not random piles of earth. Their internal cores are arranged in alternating layers of clay and stone, conductive and non-conductive strata, just like a capacitor. When exposed to the natural electrical potential of the ground, such layering could create charge differentials, effectively generating or storing electrical energy. If so, these mounds were not just monuments, they were energy capacitors, part of a planetary system designed to balance telluric forces. Chinese geomancy, or feng shui, may preserve fragments of this lost science. Its principles revolve around directing invisible currents, QQ, through alignment, water flow, and geometry. The word itself means wind and water, the same two forces that carry charge through the atmosphere and land. The ancient masters of feng shui mapped energy lines, long mei, the dragon veins, that remarkably correspond to zones of high geomagnetic activity. These dragon lines were said to pulse with life force, and great structures were built upon their intersections. To harmonize with the dragon was to master power. The pyramids of Shanxi, placed exactly on these geomagnetic nodes, seem to embody that principle. The legends of dragons, often seen as mythological, may in fact encode memories of electromagnetic plasma, serpent-like flows of energy moving through the sky during geomagnetic storms. Across the world, cultures depicted serpents or dragons as bringers of knowledge, fire, or energy. The Sumerians had Enki, lord of the watery deep. The Egyptians had the serpent Mehen guarding the sun god. The Chinese had the celestial dragon that controlled storms. Could these myths describe a natural phenomenon, one that the ancients observed and learned to replicate through geometry? If so, the Chinese pyramids were not just imperial vanity projects, but devices built to stabilize and channel these forces. Their slopes, angles, and alignments were tuned to the Earth's magnetic field. Even their vegetation, the thick layer of trees that now covers them, may have served a function, dispersing static charge and preventing erosion. Modern radar imaging shows metallic anomalies deep within several of these mounds, as if something artificial lies buried. Perhaps a core structure, perhaps machinery of unknown purpose. The authorities, however, have classified all data relating to them. Officially, excavation is too dangerous. Unofficially, perhaps, it is too revealing. There are other clues. In 1994, a Chinese scientist named Dr. Hartwig Hausdorff obtained permission to survey several mounds near Xi'an. He reported small cavities emitting electromagnetic readings significantly higher than background levels. Local villagers spoke of lights hovering above the mounds on certain nights, glowing spheres that rose silently, then vanished into the clouds. To skeptics, these were ball lightning or aircraft reflections. But similar lights have been reported over Giza, Teotihuacan, and even the pyramids of Bosnia. If true, they may indicate energy discharges, the Earth releasing built-up charge through these geometric structures. Why would the ancients build such things? To control the weather? To stabilize the planet's field? Or to communicate, not across distances of land, but across frequencies of existence? Ancient Chinese texts mention heavenly mirrors that allowed sages to speak with the stars. Such phrases sound poetic, but perhaps they describe resonance, a way of synchronizing frequencies between Earth and the heavens. There is also a linguistic clue. The Chinese word for pyramid, lingta, means soul tower or spirit vessel. It suggests not burial, but transmission, a vessel designed to bridge two realms. The same idea appears in Egyptian, where the pyramid was the mer, meaning instrument of ascension. Across cultures, the structure was never about death. It was about transformation, energy rising upward, bridging the terrestrial and celestial. As we trace the line of this hidden network, from Egypt to Sudan, from Mexico to China, a pattern emerges. Each civilization, separated by oceans, built pyramids not as isolated monuments, but as resonant nodes along global fault lines and magnetic zones. When connected, these sites form a web, a literal earth grid of harmonic geometry. The frequencies generated at one node could travel through the crust, influencing others, creating a global resonance field. And perhaps once that field was active. The old myths of the Age of Harmony, found in Chinese, Sumerian, and Egyptian lore, speak of a time when heaven and earth were in perfect alignment, when energy flowed freely and humanity lived in balance with nature. Then something changed. A flood, a tilt, a shift in the skies. The grid fell silent. The pyramids became tombs instead of transmitters. Humanity forgot. Now, as modern technology rediscovers frequency, vibration, and field theory, we are beginning to glimpse fragments of that lost understanding. Scientists study resonance therapy, wireless energy transfer, the piezoelectric properties of minerals, all echoes of what may once have been global knowledge. The ancients encoded it in myth and stone because words could be erased, but vibration endures. The forbidden pyramids of China remind us that not all knowledge was lost. Some of it was buried, waiting. The hum still lingers in the soil, the same frequency that binds Meroa to Giza, Teotihuacan to Xi'an. The same hum that once unified the world in resonance. And so the question deepens. If this global network once existed, if the Earth itself was once tuned by human hands, could it ever be reactivated? What would happen if the silent nodes began to sing again? Perhaps somewhere, under a forbidden hill in Shaanxi, that hum is already stirring, waiting for the next pulse of the sun. Next, the trail leads southward, into islands and jungles where mountains wear crowns of stone. Indonesia, Java, and the submerged plateaus of the Pacific. The network continues even beneath the sea. In the humid heart of the Indonesian archipelago, where jungles breathe mist over ancient stones and volcanoes glow like sleeping hearts, there rises a hill that is not a hill. Locals call it Gunung Padang, the Mountain of Light. For centuries, it was thought to be a natural formation, a place of legend whispered by the Sundanese people as sacred ground. But when modern scientists began to scan beneath its surface, they found something astonishing. Beneath layers of soil and vegetation lies a massive terraced pyramid, the oldest and largest in the world, perhaps built more than 20,000 years ago. At first, this claim seemed impossible. Human civilization, according to mainstream archaeology, had barely learned to farm at that time. Yet carbon dating of organic material trapped within the megalithic layers yielded ages between 13,000 and 25,000 years before present. The site was not a random pile of stones, but a deliberate construction, terraces of basalt columns stacked with mathematical precision, facing exact cardinal directions, aligned with the stars of Orion. The entire structure is built upon a bed of resonance. Each basalt block rings like a bell when struck, producing a low, sustained tone. In 2013, a team of Indonesian and international geologists led by Dr. Danny Hilman Natawijaja of the Indonesian Institute of Sciences published findings suggesting that Gunung Padang was not merely a prehistoric temple, but a multi-layered structure built in stages over tens of millennia. Beneath the upper terraces, ground-penetrating radar revealed chambers and tunnels arranged in geometric grids. One layer appeared melted, as if subjected to intense heat, a possible sign of technological manipulation long before recorded history. The scientific community met these claims with fierce resistance. The idea of a 20,000-year-old pyramid upended everything known about human origins, but the stones remain, and they hum. Tests conducted with seismographs and magnetometers recorded strange anomalies, magnetic fields oscillating around the pyramid's center, and a recurring frequency of approximately 7.8 Hertz, the same as the Earth's Schumann resonance. It was as if the structure was tuned to the heartbeat of the planet itself. When researchers played low-frequency sound waves into the chambers, the entire hill vibrated in harmonic response, amplifying the tones as though alive. One could almost imagine it breathing, resonating with the earth. Gunung Padang stands on a volcanic ridge rich in quartz and magnetite, both materials known for their piezoelectric properties. When pressure builds, they generate electrical potential. Volcanic activity below would have provided a constant source of natural vibration. The pyramid, with its carefully aligned terraces and stone columns, might have been designed to capture and channel that energy, converting geological resonance into usable power. To the ancient builders, whoever they were, energy may not have meant electricity as we understand it, but life force, frequency, prana. In the Sundanese oral tradition, Gunung Padang was the seat of the ancestors, a place where heaven and earth met. Local shamans still speak of the hum under the mountain, a vibration that can be felt during meditation. Perhaps myth and science are not so far apart. Some researchers have connected Gunung Padang to the global pyramid network, a southern node in a vast system that spanned continents. Its coordinates fall along the same geometric line that links Giza, Xi'an, and Teotihuacan, a harmonic band following Earth's magnetic equator. In this theory, Gunung Padang acted as a stabilizing anchor, grounding the resonance of the northern structures. The choice of location between two tectonic plates on an active volcanic field seems deliberate. The ancients may have understood how energy surged through fault lines, using them as conduits. There is precedent for this. The Javanese Candi temples, built thousands of years later, often sit on seismic zones, aligned to both volcanoes and celestial events. The builders saw no contradiction between heaven and earth. They understood that cosmic and geological forces were one. The pyramid at Gunung Padang could have been the original expression of that truth, the prototype of sacred engineering. As modern scientists continue to debate, the evidence deepens. In 2018, advanced scanning detected a metallic anomaly buried beneath the central chamber, roughly the size of a large statue or mechanism. Its composition is unknown, as excavation is currently restricted by government order. Some believe it is a naturally occurring deposit. Others suspect it is an artifact, perhaps the same kind of conductive material found beneath the pyramids of Egypt and Mexico. The team also discovered a hollow cavity shaped like a dome, suggesting the presence of an inner resonance chamber, a design feature strikingly similar to the King's Chamber in Giza. The parallels are difficult to ignore. The geometry, the materials, the alignments all speak of a common language of construction, one that transcends geography. Could there have been an ancient global culture, a lost civilization that predated known history and left behind these resonant monuments as a map of forgotten knowledge? The idea has long been dismissed as fantasy, yet every new discovery brings it closer to plausibility. Mainstream archaeologists argue that the dating methods at Gunung Padang are unreliable, that the site may simply be a natural hill modified by later human activity. But if that were true, how do we explain the uniform terraces, the basalt blocks shaped like tuning forks, the magnetic alignment with Orion? Nature does not compose symphonies. These stones were placed by intelligence, one that understood the Earth as instrument. In the broader context of the Black Pyramid Network, Gunung Padang represents the oldest vibration, the first note of the ancient scale. If Giza was the crown and Xi'an the spine, then Gunung Padang was the pulse, the heart of resonance. The ancients may have chosen volcanic sites precisely because they offered a gateway to the planet's internal energy, the molten, magnetic core whose rhythm sustains all life. By building pyramids above these energy nodes, they could have amplified the Earth's own voice, creating a planetary symphony that once kept climate, magnetism, and consciousness in equilibrium. Some scholars outside the mainstream, from Graham Hancock to Robert Schoch, have proposed that an advanced culture existed before the last great cataclysm, around 12,000 years ago. They suggest that structures like Gunung Padang, Göbekli Tepe, and the submerged ruins near Yonaguni in Japan were built by survivors of that lost age. If true, then the Black Pyramid Network may not have been constructed all at once, but reactivated in stages, rebuilt by later civilizations that inherited fragments of the same knowledge. The physical evidence supports this idea. Layers of construction at Gunung Padang show multiple phases, an ancient core buried deep, overlaid by later reconstructions using simpler techniques. It is as if generations tried to rebuild what they could no longer fully understand, mimicking the form, but losing the function. The hum remains, but its purpose has been forgotten. Standing atop the terraces today, surrounded by jungle, one can still feel the vibration through the soles of the feet, a soft, constant tremor, part geology, part mystery. When the wind passes through the basalt columns, it creates a deep harmonic sound, like a distant drum. At sunset, the stones glow amber and red, as if remembering fire. Local villagers say that during certain nights, when lightning strikes nearby volcanoes, the mountain sings, a low rumble that seems to rise from within the earth itself. Perhaps this is coincidence. Or perhaps, after millennia of silence, the old network still stirs. If the ancient world truly once harnessed the Earth's energy through resonance, then sites like Gunung Padang are not anomalies. They are survivors. They remind us that civilization did not begin with bronze and fire, but with vibration and stone. Energy was not extracted, but invited. Power was not domination, but harmony. And perhaps this knowledge was never meant to vanish. It was encoded in architecture, waiting to be rediscovered when humanity was ready to listen again. The mystery of Gunung Padang forces us to reconsider the timeline of human awakening. Who were its builders? How did they shape millions of tons of basalt without metal tools? How did they calculate alignments that modern engineers only rediscovered with satellites? And most haunting of all, what happened to them? The local myths tell of a great flood, of mountains trembling and stars falling from the sky. In that story, the mountain of light was buried by the gods to protect what lay beneath. Perhaps what they sought to preserve was not treasure, but knowledge, the blueprint of a global resonance system that once linked the Earth's poles, oceans, and hearts. The same blueprint appears again and again, in Egypt, in Sudan, in Mexico, in China, and now in Indonesia. It is as if these sites are fragments of a forgotten instrument scattered by time. And if we ever learn to reconnect them, perhaps the earth will sing once more. But the song is not yet complete. There are still missing notes, lost pyramids hidden beneath the waves, waiting in silence. For the next step in our journey, we will dive beneath the ocean itself, to places once above sea level, where pyramids lie drowned in salt and myth. Japan's Yonaguni Monument, the Bimini Road of the Bahamas, and the sunken plateaus of the Pacific, ruins that whisper of a world that fell beneath the sea, yet left behind echoes of the same design. The network does not end on land. It continues below, deep, resonant, and waiting. Beneath the restless surface of the oceans, where light fades into endless blue, lie the bones of forgotten continents. Down there, silence reigns, except for the slow, rhythmic pulse of the deep, the same planetary heartbeat that once guided the builders of the pyramids above. Divers, sonar scans, and satellite imaging have begun to reveal strange formations under the waves. Structures that defy erosion and randomness, arranged in lines and angles too perfect to be natural. Some call them legends, Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu. Others, more cautious, call them submarine terraces or unexplained geological features. But if the story of the Black Pyramid Network is true, then perhaps these submerged ruins were once the foundation of it all, the lost nodes of a civilization erased by flood and time. Off the coast of Yonaguni Island, at the southern tip of Japan, divers discovered in 1987 what appeared to be a massive stepped pyramid beneath the sea. The formation stretches over 500 feet long and 90 feet high, with sharp right angles, terraces, and staircases descending into the abyss. The currents swirl through corridors that seem carved by design. Some surfaces bear what look like tool marks, while others align perfectly with ancient shorelines dating back to the last ice age, when sea levels were more than 300 feet lower than today. If true, then Yonaguni was built at least 12,000 years ago, the same period when Gunung Padang and Göbekli Tepe were alive with human hands. Mainstream scientists call Yonaguni a natural formation, shaped by tectonic fractures and ocean currents. Yet several independent geologists, including Dr. Masaki Kimura of the University of the Ryukyus, have documented evidence of human modification. Chisel-like marks, stone pillars, and even inscriptions that resemble early Japanese scripts. The structure's symmetry, platforms aligned to true north, steps matching known ancient measurements, challenges the randomness of nature. And when divers strike the stone, it resonates with deep, ringing tones, just like the basalt of Gunung Padang. More remarkable still, when the coordinates of Yonaguni are connected to those of other pyramid sites, Giza, Teotihuacan, Xi'an, and Gunung Padang, They form a near-perfect arc tracing the equatorial harmonic grid. It's as though the network extends seamlessly from land into sea, as if the builders anticipated coastlines that would one day drown. Could they have known the floods were coming? Ancient myths across Asia and the Pacific remember such a cataclysm. The Japanese speak of Ryugu-jo, the dragon palace beneath the ocean, a luminous realm ruled by beings who descended from the sky and later retreated into the depths when humanity forgot their ways. In Hindu tradition, there is Patala, a vast underground kingdom of serpents where knowledge and power once resided. Polynesian legends tell of Hiva, an island that sank beneath the waves but still hums below the sea. These are not isolated stories. They are echoes of the same event, a flood that ended one world and began another. If Yonaguni was part of that world, it might represent the last visible fragment of a lost Pacific civilization, what some have called Lemuria or Mu. Though dismissed by modern academia, the idea of a lost Pacific continent emerged not from fantasy, but from early ethnographic comparisons. Myths, megaliths, and linguistic links stretching from Easter Island to Madagascar. These ancient mariners spoke of their ancestors coming from the rising sun, carrying symbols of the serpent, the pyramid, and the star. Everywhere they went, they built in stone. Under the waters of the Indian Ocean, near Tamil Nadu, another discovery adds to the mystery. The ruins of the so-called lost city of Mahabalipuram stretch for miles along the submerged coast, featuring walls, pillars, and platforms that mirror the temples still standing on shore. Sonar imaging reveals geometric structures buried beneath layers of silt, suggesting an urban layout. Geological dating places their submersion around 9000 BCE, the very time the Ice Age ended and global waters rose catastrophically. Further west, near the Bahamas, divers have traced a pattern of massive rectangular stones beneath shallow water, the Bimini Road. Discovered in the 1960s, it lies exactly where the prophet Edgar Cayce predicted the ruins of Atlantis would be found. The road appears to lead toward deeper formations now heavily eroded. Critics say the stones are natural beach rock formations. Supporters insist the regularity of the angles, the fitted joints, and the direction of the path suggest design. The truth remains obscured by quarrel and controversy. But taken together, Yonaguni, Mahabalipuram, Bimini, and others, they sketch a haunting pattern. Each lies on or near known fault lines or geomagnetic anomalies. Each aligns with ancient pyramid sites on the surface, and each resonates at frequencies similar to the Earth's fundamental harmonics when tested with sonar. These are not mere coincidences. They are signatures of design, buried beneath millennia of rising seas. What if these underwater sites were once part of a global system, the original network, the foundation upon which the later civilizations built their own pyramids? When the oceans rose, much of that knowledge would have drowned. The survivors, scattered across continents, may have preserved fragments in myth and architecture. Egypt, Mesoamerica, China, and Indonesia, each may represent a reconstruction, an echo of something far older. Modern geology confirms that around 12,800 years ago, a sudden event struck the planet. A comet impact, massive volcanic eruptions, or both, triggering the Younger Dryas, a millennium-long cold snap that ended with catastrophic floods. Sea levels rose hundreds of feet. Entire coastlines vanished. Cultures collapsed. It was as if the planet had reset, The Black Pyramid network, if it existed before that event, would have been shattered, its nodes drowned, its purpose forgotten. But perhaps not entirely. Perhaps some of the pyramids we see today were built directly above the submerged ruins, reactivating faint traces of the energy grid that once pulsed across the Earth. The theory gains weight when one studies the distribution of megalithic sites. From the stone circles of Malta to the ruins off Cuba's western shelf, a region where sonar images reveal symmetrical structures a half-mile beneath the waves, the pattern persists. Wherever the land rises from the ocean, remnants of geometry emerge. It is as if an ancient design continues, invisible but unbroken, connecting the planet like veins of memory. The question, then, is what purpose this vast network served. Was it technological, a planetary energy system? Was it spiritual, a mechanism to harmonize consciousness with Earth's frequency? Or was it something that transcended both, a bridge between matter and mind? In certain indigenous Pacific traditions, there is a belief that the Earth once sang in perfect harmony, that mountains and islands resonated together, creating balance in weather and fertility. When humans disrupted the harmony, the song broke and the waters rose. The survivors built new structures to anchor the song again, but without full understanding. That image, of a planet once singing through its stones, mirrors what modern physicists describe as resonance and field coherence. Perhaps ancient myth and modern science are describing the same thing in different languages. The pyramids above and the ruins below may thus represent two halves of the same forgotten system, one on land, one beneath the sea. The ancients may have known that the planet's magnetic energy flows most strongly along coastlines and beneath the oceans. Building pyramids above those nodes could have allowed them to tap into those natural circuits. If the oceanic sites like Yonaguni were once part of that same grid, then the entire planet might once have been interconnected. A resonant organism where energy flowed freely through geometry. Even today, anomalies persist. Pilots crossing the Bermuda Triangle have reported compass failures, strange lights, and electromagnetic disturbances, phenomena that might correspond to residual energy from a submerged structure interacting with Earth's magnetic field. In 2001, sonar scans of the deep Atlantic ridge revealed enormous symmetrical formations 2 miles underwater, their shapes eerily resembling step pyramids. The findings remain unconfirmed, but the images, if authentic, hint that we have barely scratched the surface of what sleeps beneath the seas. If the ocean once hid the origins of the Black Pyramid network, perhaps it still guards its secret heart. Maybe somewhere, deep beneath the Pacific or the Indian Ocean, lies the central node, the first pyramid, the source of the resonance that once linked the world. Such an idea may sound like myth, yet history itself began with myth. And myths, when followed carefully, often lead to truth. The flood stories of every culture, from the Epic of Gilgamesh to the Book of Genesis, from Hindu Pralaya to the legends of the Maori, all speak of the same pattern: a fall, a deluge, a rebirth. And always the survivors rebuild in stone. The stones remember. Today, as sonar maps the ocean floor and satellites trace invisible lines of magnetism across continents, we are rediscovering what our ancestors once knew instinctively: that the Earth is alive and geometry is the language of its breath. The pyramids, above and below the sea, were its instruments, amplifiers of planetary music, harmonizers of creation. Perhaps the flood did not destroy the network entirely. Perhaps it only muted it. And perhaps now, as humanity's technology grows closer to vibration, frequency, and resonance once again, the old grid is beginning to stir. The hum is returning, faint but rising. The story of the Black Pyramid Network does not end beneath the ocean. The next thread winds northward, across the ice and winds of forgotten lands, toward a realm said to exist beyond maps, where pyramids of black stone pierce the endless frost. Antarctica, the final continent, the oldest secret. If the submerged pyramids are the buried heart of the network, then perhaps the ones beneath the ice are its frozen memory, the last witnesses of a time when the world sang as one. At the bottom of the world lies a continent wrapped in silence, a place of wind and white, of mountains entombed beneath miles of ice. Antarctica. To most, it is a wasteland, a frozen void untouched by time. But in recent decades, satellite images have revealed anomalies, geometric formations rising beneath the ice, peaks shaped not like mountains but like pyramids. 3 of them stand in perfect alignment, their angles matching those of Giza, their shadows long and deliberate beneath the eternal sun. Scientists call them nunataks, rocky outcrops shaped by natural forces. Yet their symmetry, their positioning, and their orientation to true north whisper a different story. Could Antarctica, the coldest place on Earth, have once been home to the warmest secrets of the ancient world? The idea seems absurd until you peel back the layers of ice, both literal and historical. Geological evidence shows that Antarctica was not always frozen. Millions of years ago, it was a lush continent covered in forests and rivers. But more recent studies, including ice core analyses and magnetic surveys, suggest that parts of the continent may have been ice-free as recently as 12,000 years ago, precisely when global cataclysms reshaped the world. That same epoch marks the end of the Younger Dryas, the flood that swallowed cities, the fall of the supposed lost civilizations. What if the final refuge of the Black Pyramid Network lies here, preserved in ice? The theory gained attention in the mid-20th century when military expeditions stumbled upon something strange. Operation High Jump, launched by the United States Navy in 1946, officially aimed to establish Antarctic research bases. Unofficially, it became the subject of speculation after reports surfaced of unknown craft sighted during the mission. Some claimed that Admiral Richard Byrd, who led the expedition, spoke of flying discs that emerged from beneath the ice at impossible speeds. His diary, later alleged to have been censored, mentioned a vast green valley beyond the mountains, illuminated by an inner sun. Whether myth or misdirection, the story ignited imaginations. Could there be something beneath Antarctica that governments have chosen to hide? In 2016, high-resolution satellite imagery from NASA's Earth Observatory revealed 3 pyramidal peaks protruding from the ice in the Ellsworth Mountains. Their faces were smooth, their slopes measured at roughly 50 degrees, within the same range as the Great Pyramid of Giza. Researchers initially explained them as natural formations caused by freeze-thaw erosion. Yet geological erosion does not typically produce equilateral symmetry, nor does it account for the alignment of 3 such peaks along a perfect diagonal line. When plotted against global coordinates, the Antarctic pyramids align with a chain of ancient sites: Giza, Teotihuacan, Xi'an, and Gunung Padang. all nodes in the supposed harmonic grid. The line continues through Easter Island, another locus of megalithic mystery. It is as if the network arcs around the planet like a sine wave, crossing the poles as if they were vital circuits in the Earth's energetic anatomy. If the network was global, Antarctica might not have been its periphery. It may have been its core. The possibility is strengthened by one of the most enigmatic maps in human history. The Piri-Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral using sources he claimed were ancient charts. The map depicts the coast of Antarctica not as a frozen landmass, but as an ice-free shoreline, accurate in detail that only modern seismic radar has confirmed. When it was examined by cartographers in the 20th century, they were stunned. The delineation of Antarctica's subglacial coastlines was precise, suggesting that whoever created the original source maps had seen the continent before it was buried under ice, at least 6,000 years ago, possibly much earlier. Who could have charted such a place in deep antiquity? Some propose the Phoenicians, others the Egyptians, others still a lost civilization whose ships sailed long before recorded time. But the mystery deepens. The same geometric ratios found in the Piri-Reis projection appear in the layout of ancient temples and pyramids, a harmonic proportionality that seems to transcend geography. It's as if the map itself was part of the same encoded system, an attempt to preserve knowledge of a world that was vanishing beneath the sea and ice. In 2017, seismic surveys conducted by a multinational research team revealed a massive anomaly beneath the Antarctic ice near Wilkes Land, a circular structure more than 300 kilometers wide, buried deep under the glacial crust. Scientists described it as an impact crater, possibly from a meteorite that triggered the extinction of the Pleistocene megafauna. But its perfectly concentric shape and magnetic irregularities led others to speculate that it might be artificial, the remnants of an ancient installation, or even the power core of a forgotten civilization. If the Black Pyramid network once spanned the globe, this buried structure could have been its heart, the central node that linked all others. Speculation aside, the pattern remains haunting. Every pyramid in the network, from the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Indonesia, sits near water, magnetite, or both. Antarctica, under its ice, hides massive freshwater lakes sealed for millions of years. Lake Vostok, nearly 250 kilometers long, rests beneath 4 kilometers of ice. When scientists drilled into its outer layers, they found microbe fossils unknown elsewhere on Earth, and traces of magnetic minerals unusual for such an environment. Could something lie deeper? Perhaps a city, or the ruins of a technological site frozen intact? Declassified documents from Cold War archives mention repeated magnetic anomalies detected over Vostok, strong enough to distort compasses. Some aircraft instruments reportedly malfunctioned in the area. Officially, these were geomagnetic disturbances. Unofficially, they mirror the same disturbances found near pyramid sites worldwide. The pattern, magnetic irregularities around geometric formations, repeats again and again. If we view Earth as a living circuit, Antarctica could be its southern terminal, a colossal grounding point. The ancient builders may have known this, positioning the Black Pyramids along lines of telluric energy that converge at the poles. In that sense, the Antarctic structures might not have been built on the energy grid. They were the grid, serving as amplifiers for the planet's natural harmonics. The myths of the South Pole are few but persistent. Some indigenous Australian legends speak of a white land beneath the stars, a realm of ancestors where the world's balance was maintained. In Andean mythology, the islands of the sun were said to be reflections of a greater temple at the edge of the world where cold meets light. In every version, the motif is the same: a sacred place at the planet's end, hidden and protected. If the pyramids under Antarctic ice truly exist, if they were once active, they might have drawn their power not from the sun or the earth alone, but from both, using the planet's magnetic poles as conduits. When the cataclysm struck, whether flood, impact, or magnetic reversal, the field may have collapsed, freezing the system in place. What we see today could be the frozen remains of an ancient planetary engine. To the skeptics, this is fantasy. To the dreamers, it is memory. And somewhere between the two lies the truth, the possibility that our species once walked alongside a knowledge far beyond what we now imagine, and that pieces of that knowledge still slumber beneath the ice. Antarctica has always been a mirror for human imagination, a blank slate onto which we project what we cannot explain. But what if, this time, the myths are fragments of something real? Satellite scans continue to reveal linear anomalies beneath the ice, structures that seem to run for miles. Some resemble tunnels or causeways, others concentric rings. One such ring, found near the Weddell Sea, mirrors the exact dimensions of Plato's description of Atlantis: 3 circular walls enclosing a central island. Coincidence or confirmation? Perhaps the ancients who built the Black Pyramid network came from this lost southern world, not extraterrestrial, but pre-cataclysmic humans who mastered the science of resonance. When their homeland froze, they carried fragments of that knowledge northward, rebuilding in stone what they had once known in energy. The pyramids of Giza, Meroa, Teotihuacan, and Xi'an could thus be memories of Antarctica's forgotten empire, each one a monument to what was lost. The evidence remains buried, both by ice and by intention. International treaties forbid excavation beyond limited scientific study. No nation claims ownership. No exploration is allowed without collective consent. In a strange way, Antarctica is still protected, as if by design. Perhaps, beneath the guise of environmental preservation, lies another reason: that what sleeps below must not yet awaken. Yet the world is warming. The ice retreats. Each year, new regions of Antarctica emerge from their frozen veil. The satellites watch, and the data grows stranger. Magnetic shifts accelerate. The poles migrate. The Schumann resonance fluctuates, rising steadily. A sign, perhaps, that the planet itself is changing frequency. Could this be the slow reactivation of the ancient grid? We do not know. But if the Black Pyramid network was ever real, its heart may soon beat again. And when it does, what will it awaken? Power, knowledge, or warning? For now, the ice keeps its silence. The pyramids, if they are pyramids, remain encased in eternal frost, their geometry locked in crystal memory. The hum of the planet echoes faintly through them, waiting for the day when the snow melts and the stones breathe once more. Beyond Antarctica, the grid continues. Across the oceans and up through the northern hemisphere, another mystery rises, a land of myth that may be even older than the ice. Hyperborea, the land beyond the north wind, the next node in the network. They called it the land beyond the north wind, Hyperborea, a realm of endless light, untouched by winter, where rivers of warmth flowed beneath skies that never darkened. In Greek tradition, it was a paradise at the top of the world, inhabited by a race of luminous beings who lived in harmony with the earth and the heavens. No disease, no war, no decay. To the poets and philosophers of antiquity, Hyperborea was not a myth but a memory, the echo of a civilization that once existed in the far north, lost to ice and time. What if that legend was not allegory, but geography? Ancient maps and Arctic expeditions hint at something extraordinary, that the polar regions, long before they froze, may have been habitable, even temperate. Core samples taken from beneath the Greenland ice sheet reveal pollen, plant material, and traces of forest soil, proving that these lands were once warm. Around 12,000 years ago, something changed abruptly. The Earth's axis tilted, or its magnetic field shifted, plunging the polar regions into perpetual cold. The event coincides exactly with the same cataclysm that flooded the coasts and drowned the network beneath the seas. If Antarctica was the southern heart of the system, could Hyperborea have been its northern crown? In myth, the Hyperboreans were said to have built temples to Apollo, god of light and harmony. Every 19 years, according to Herodotus, sacred offerings were sent from Hyperborea to Delphi, passing through a chain of lands, a route that eerily mirrors ancient trade and ley lines connecting the Arctic Circle to Greece, Anatolia, and Egypt. Some scholars believe these legends preserved faint memories of a polar civilization that once radiated its influence southward. The ancient world may have remembered it as the birthplace of geometry, astronomy, and the harmony of spheres, the very principles that later shaped the pyramids. But myths are not the only clues. The northern world hides its own pyramids, though few speak of them. In the tundras of Russia's Kola Peninsula, near the Murmansk region, explorers in the 1920s reported colossal stone structures buried in permafrost, truncated pyramids of granite aligned with the solstices. Soviet archaeologists dismissed them as natural formations, but when geophysical teams revisited the site in the 1990s, they recorded electromagnetic anomalies and symmetrical cavities beneath the ground. The region remains off-limits today, officially due to military research. Further east, in Yakutia's frozen wilderness, rumors tell of the Valley of Death, a desolate place where metallic domes protrude from the earth, half buried, half exposed, arranged in geometric clusters. Local hunters avoid the area, claiming that animals grow sick near the iron houses. When Russian scientists visited in the 1930s, they described the structures as hollow hemispheres of an unknown alloy, perfectly smooth and resistant to corrosion. Some later vanished beneath floods, others were swallowed by permafrost. Their purpose remains a mystery, but their arrangement, circular and harmonic, resembles energy nodes, as if remnants of an ancient system still pulse beneath the ice. If these accounts are true, they might represent the last visible artifacts of Hyperborea, or at least of a northern extension of the Black Pyramid network. Hyperborea's mythology aligns with this possibility. The Greeks believed its people communicated through music and vibration, not speech. They were said to channel the power of the sun through crystal towers that sang with light, khonsis. The gods themselves were said to rest among them, not as supernatural beings, but as teachers of resonance, the same motif found in Egypt, Sumer, and the Andes. Could Hyperborea have been the origin point of this knowledge? The civilization that seeded the harmonic science across the globe? In the old Norse Eddas, there is mention of Asgard, the shining city of the gods, connected to the world by a rainbow bridge of resonance. Scholars interpret this as mythic metaphor, but the language of light and vibration is universal. The Norse described the world as sustained by a great axis, Yggdrasil, whose roots and branches connect the heavens, earth, and underworld, a cosmic structure that mirrors the harmonic grid. Every culture, it seems, remembered the same thing: a network of energy connecting all life, now broken and buried. During the last century, polar explorers reported strange phenomena near the Arctic Circle: compass deviations, luminous auroras that seemed to respond to magnetic activity, and even warm anomalies beneath the ice. In 1947, Norwegian scientists conducting magnetometric surveys near Svalbard detected localized fields of intense magnetism inconsistent with known geology. The readings corresponded precisely to regions where ancient legends placed the northern temples of light. These anomalies remain unexplained. Some fringe researchers believe that Hyperborea's ruins lie beneath the polar ice cap, preserved much like Antarctica's. They theorize that the ancient builders understood geomagnetic currents and placed their structures at both poles to maintain global equilibrium, a dual system of north and south, positive and negative, light and shadow. The collapse of this balance, perhaps triggered by a magnetic reversal or impact event, would have shattered the system, plunging the planet into chaos and climate catastrophe. The frozen poles, then, are not the beginning of ice. They are the tombstones of balance lost. Even in our age of satellites, the Arctic remains one of the least explored regions on Earth. Beneath its ice lie mountain ranges, deep basins, and continental shelves that may once have been dry land. Some sonar scans of the Arctic Ocean's Lomonosov Ridge reveal symmetrical features suggestive of man-made structures, terraces, steps, and rectilinear forms. Scientists caution that these are probably natural geological formations. Yet the same caution was once applied to Yonaguni and Gunung Padang. The deeper one looks, the more the northern myths seem to merge with historical memory. The Hyperboreans, it was said, never died. They simply moved northward beyond the winds. This may have been a poetic description of migration, a retreat into the last temperate regions as the ice advanced. From there, perhaps, they carried fragments of their knowledge to other lands, to the Sumerians, to the Egyptians, to the ancestors of the Maya. Even Plato's account of Atlantis, when translated through celestial coordinates, points not to the Atlantic but to the Arctic, a continent beyond the Pillars of Hercules that disappeared in a single night of fire and flood. Could Hyperborea and Atlantis be two memories of the same event, one in the north, one in the south, both swallowed by the same planetary shift? If so, the Black Pyramid Network might have been their legacy, a chain of resonant monuments built to preserve balance after the world tilted. The pyramids, temples, and mounds could have been attempts to restore what was lost, to retune the planet's frequency. Consider this. Modern studies of the Earth's magnetic field show that it is weakening and wandering, the poles drifting, the shield thinning. Scientists warn of an impending reversal, the first in nearly 800,000 years. Could the ancients have witnessed this before? Could their monuments have been built to stabilize it, to protect the planet from chaos? The idea is both thrilling and sobering. It suggests that the builders of the Black Pyramid Network were not dreamers but engineers, guardians of planetary equilibrium. Their understanding of resonance, magnetism, and geometry was not mystical but practical, a technology of harmony. And when the balance was broken, when the ice came, their civilization fell into myth. Today, as the Arctic ice melts, we may be approaching another moment of revelation. Beneath Greenland's receding glaciers, satellite imaging has revealed vast circular depressions and linear anomalies, possible ruins or natural features yet to be studied. In 2018, NASA's Operation Icebridge detected a large ring-like structure buried under Hiawatha Glacier near the magnetic north. Officially, it is an impact crater, but its proportions mirror those of the Wilkes Land anomaly in Antarctica, as if the two poles once mirrored each other perfectly, two ends of the same mechanism. If that mechanism ever functioned, the Earth itself might once have been tuned like a giant instrument, its poles resonating in harmonic balance. The ancients may have known how to sustain this equilibrium until something disrupted it. And now, as the ice thins and the magnetic field wavers, the resonance seems to be stirring again. Auroras grow stronger, earthquakes cluster along ancient ley lines, and frequencies once confined to the Schumann range fluctuate beyond expectation. The planet hums louder, as if awakening. Perhaps the network is reactivating, or perhaps it is warning us. The myths of Hyperborea end not in despair, but in promise. They say that when the world once again hears the song of the Earth, when humanity learns to live in harmony with the planet's rhythm, the Hyperboreans will return. Not as gods descending from the sky, but as knowledge resurfacing from the ice. The Golden Age will rise again, not by conquest, but by resonance. For now the North remains silent, a mirror of Antarctica's sleep. But every day the ice retreats, and every night, under the aurora, the magnetic sky flickers like an ancient heartbeat. Somewhere beneath that light, buried deep in the permafrost, the remnants of a forgotten civilization wait for the sun to rise once more. Next, the journey leads us towards the west, to the lands where myth meets memory, the forgotten realms of Tartaria and the steppe empires that rose and vanished as if rewritten by invisible hands. There, perhaps, we will find the last visible traces of the Black Pyramid Network before it faded completely into history. Across the endless plains of Eurasia, where the steppe rolls like a sea of wind and grass, lies a history written not in ink, but in absence. Beneath the soil of Russia, Ukraine, Mongolia, and Central Asia, archaeologists uncover fragments of a civilization that should not exist. Roads carved through permafrost, buried foundations made of fused stone, and remnants of vast cities built with geometric precision. Yet no record of their builders remains. In the annals of empire, this lost realm was given a name that sounds more like a myth than a nation: Tartaria. To most historians, Tartaria is nothing more than an archaic label, a word used by medieval cartographers to describe the lands beyond the known world, where Mongols and nomads roamed. But old maps tell a stranger story. Across Europe and Asia, from the 15th to the 18th centuries, maps labeled enormous territories as Great Tartary, stretching from the Caspian Sea to the Pacific Ocean. Its cities, Tobolsk, Samarkand, Karakorum, and even mysterious names like Asgard or Arkham, were marked with elaborate iconography. Domes, towers, pyramids. These were not barbarian tents. They were cities of light. The deeper one digs into this forgotten empire, the stranger it becomes. Ancient fortresses built with cyclopean stones lie beneath Siberian forests. Their walls are magnetized, oriented precisely to magnetic north. In Kazakhstan, the ruins of Arkaim, a circular city discovered in 1987, show astronomical alignments as accurate as Stonehenge. Its layout forms a mandala, concentric rings, roads aligned to solstices, houses built with fireproof clay. Radiocarbon dating places it at over 4,000 years old, yet it appears planned with the sophistication of a modern observatory. The site's geometry echoes the same harmonic ratios seen in Giza, Teotihuacan, and Xi'an. Could Arkaim be a surviving node of the Black Pyramid network, disguised by distance and time? The idea seems impossible until you compare the structures. Beneath Arkaim, magnetometers detect a strong, localized anomaly, similar to those found beneath pyramid sites worldwide. Its central plaza, circular and open to the sky, resonates at a frequency near 8 Hz, almost exactly the Schumann resonance. When sound is generated within its ringed walls, the vibrations amplify, creating standing waves. The city hums like a tuning fork in the steppe wind. Who built it? No one knows. The Indo-Aryan tribes who later occupied the region spoke of Asgard of the North, a shining fortress where gods once lived among men. The legend of Odin's homeland, they said, was not myth but memory, a city of resonance destroyed by fire from the sky. Arkaim fits that description eerily well, its clay vitrified by heat, its inner walls fused as though melted by a burst of energy. Perhaps not a weapon, but a reaction, the collapse of a system once tuned to planetary frequency. Travel west, and the traces continue. Across Siberia and the Ural Mountains lie the remains of giant earthworks, canals, and geometric mounds. From above, they form patterns that repeat in perfect symmetry: hexagons, spirals, concentric circles. These patterns only reveal themselves from the air, from a perspective no ancient army could have achieved. Yet the builders clearly designed them for that view, as if their understanding of geometry transcended ordinary experience. By the 18th century, however, the maps began to change. Tartaria disappeared. The empire that spanned half the world was erased from atlases and replaced by new borders: Russia, China, Mongolia. The cathedrals and towers that once defined its cities were repurposed, their technologies forgotten. The great star-shaped citadels of the Russian Empire, built with perfect mathematical precision, were said to be fortresses. Yet their layouts match energy patterns rather than military logic, radiating lines that align with telluric currents. These star forts appear on every continent, even in colonies that allegedly had no contact with one another. Were they remnants of an older global system of resonance architecture, the final manifestation of the Black Pyramid network before it collapsed? Some historians argue that the very term Tartaria was suppressed, its archives burned, its memory rewritten, because it represented a model of civilization incompatible with the industrial age, a world powered not by fuel, but by harmony. In old engravings, Tartarian towers crowned with spires and spheres emit visible light, often connected by lightning-like lines across cities. These depictions are dismissed as artistic fantasy. Yet the resemblance to modern Tesla coils is unmistakable. Could it be that Tartaria preserved fragments of the ancient energy network, the same knowledge once encoded in the pyramids? Perhaps these towers harnessed atmospheric electricity, drawing charge from the ionosphere and distributing it through domes and metal-topped buildings. The architecture of Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Samarkand still bears traces of this aesthetic. Onion domes shaped like capacitors, copper spires aligned to magnetic north, stone foundations built from piezoelectric quartz. If this technology once existed, it may have been rediscovered rather than invented. Nikola Tesla himself hinted at this possibility. In his 1908 writings, he referenced the forgotten science of the ancients, who understood the harmony between earth and the air. Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, a colossal resonator meant to transmit wireless power, operated on the same principle as the ancient pyramids: resonance between the earth and the atmosphere. His tower was destroyed, his research confiscated, and his dream silenced. Perhaps he had merely rediscovered a truth that Tartaria, and the world before it, had long known. The fall of Tartaria is as mysterious as its existence. Around the mid-19th century, the empire seemed to vanish overnight. Maps changed, records disappeared, and what little architecture remained was reattributed to colonial powers. The story of a global flood, or mud event, recorded in countless local chronicles, speaks of cities buried in sediment almost instantly. Streets sealed beneath layers of clay, doorways half submerged, entire buildings entombed. In St. Petersburg, excavation of ancient basements reveals windows buried below ground level, as if the earth itself rose to swallow the cities. Could this have been another geophysical shift? The aftershock of the same planetary event that froze Antarctica and drowned the Pacific? If so, the destruction of Tartaria might not have been political, but magnetic, the final collapse of the Black Pyramid network. When the Earth's resonance faltered, the system destabilized. The structures that once drew power from the grid became inert, their function forgotten, their form misinterpreted as art. Civilization rebuilt upon their ruins, blind to the geometry beneath its feet, yet traces remain. Across Eurasia, electromagnetic maps show lines of high geomagnetic tension that correspond to ancient trade routes and to the placement of star forts, pyramids, and domed cathedrals. When connected, they form a lattice across the entire northern hemisphere, intersecting precisely at the magnetic pole. The pattern is too deliberate to ignore. It is as though the architects of Tartaria had attempted to repair or extend the old global grid, merging ancient resonance knowledge with the technology of their time. Modern instruments detect peculiar harmonics near these sites, low-frequency waves between 6 and 9 Hz, the same band as the Schumann resonance. Some researchers speculate that these frequencies affect human consciousness, producing feelings of calm, inspiration, even revelation. Perhaps the so-called Golden Age, remembered in myth, was not simply cultural, it was neurological. Humanity once lived in synchrony with the planet's resonance, its collective mind attuned to the Earth's song. Then came the silence. If Tartaria was indeed the last visible expression of the ancient network, its erasure marked the end of that harmony, the beginning of the age of noise. Yet even now, the geometry persists in the foundations of cities, in forgotten blueprints, in cathedrals that still hum faintly when thunder passes overhead. The resonance has not died. It only sleeps. The Black Pyramid network may have ended in Tartaria, but its ghost still lingers, in the flicker of auroras, in the hum of power lines, in the frequencies that modern science now rediscovers through quantum resonance and field theory. Perhaps the ancients and Tartarians were not separate epochs, but continuations of the same story, humanity's recurring attempt to remember how to live in harmony with the Earth's frequency. And so, as we approach the final chapters of this investigation, the question shifts from what the network was to why it was built. Was it merely to generate energy, or something deeper? To preserve memory, to synchronize consciousness, to link the world in a field of unity? If so, its collapse was not only geological, but spiritual. Yet the story does not end here. There remains one more piece of the pattern, one final anomaly where legend and geometry converge. Beyond the steppes, in the heart of the Old World, lies a monument whose purpose defies explanation. A black stone older than civilization, said to hum when struck by lightning. It stands in the deserts of Arabia, worshipped, rebuilt, and shrouded in ritual. The Kaaba, perhaps the last surviving key of the network itself. At the center of the world's most enduring ritual stands a cube of black stone. Millions circle it every year, their movements forming a vast human vortex, spiraling, rhythmic, magnetic. They call it Al-Kaaba, the cube. To most, it is a symbol of faith, a sacred house of God. But to the ancients, and perhaps to those who once built the great networks of stone that spanned the earth, it may have been something more. Long before Islam, long before Mecca was known to the world, the Kaaba existed. Arab historians record that it was a place of reverence in the age of the Jahiliyyah, the time of ignorance. Tribes from across the peninsula came to circle it, not in worship of idols alone, but in recognition of a celestial order, a harmony mirrored between heaven and earth. Some legends claim that the Kaaba was built by angels before Adam. Others that Adam himself raised it as the first house on earth. Still others say it was rebuilt by Abraham and Ishmael, following the pattern of an older, divine geometry. Whatever its origin, the Kaaba is not merely symbolic. It is architectural, geometric, harmonic, a cube precisely aligned with the cardinal directions, its sides facing the four corners of the world. Within one of its corners is embedded a relic, the black stone, Al-Hajar al-Aswad. Dark, smooth, and strangely lustrous, it is unlike any ordinary rock. Scientists who have examined small fragments describe its composition as unique, part basalt, part glass, part unknown. Some believe it to be meteorite, others think it is an ancient fusion of minerals melted by tremendous heat. The stone's surface bears traces of vitrification, as though once exposed to a powerful energy source. Pilgrims who touch it often describe a subtle vibration, a tingling in the fingertips, perhaps reverence, perhaps something else. What if this stone is not merely a symbol of the divine, but a remnant of the old world, a fragment of the same network that connected pyramids and temples across the earth? The idea is not as far-fetched as it seems. In nearly every ancient civilization, black stones held sacred significance. In Delphi, the Greeks venerated the omphalos, a smooth, dark stone marking the navel of the world. The Egyptians enshrined the Benben stone at Heliopolis, said to have fallen from heaven, glowing with fire. The Sumerians built ziggurats crowned with polished black rock they called Neze da Jiguanen, the stone of heaven. In Mecca, the Kaaba's black stone continues this lineage, the same geometry, the same symbolism, the same celestial descent. But beyond myth lies a curious pattern. These sacred stones were not just symbolic. They were placed at specific geophysical locations, points of high geomagnetic concentration. The Kaaba sits almost exactly at the intersection of two major tectonic lines and lies close to the center of the Earth's landmass, as calculated by several modern geographers. Its orientation faces true north with remarkable accuracy, and the surrounding mosque amplifies that alignment. Ancient builders, without compasses or satellites, somehow found the world's harmonic center. Pilgrims circumambulate the Kaaba counterclockwise 7 times, the same direction electrons move in magnetic rotation, the same number of resonant nodes in Earth's Schumann frequency band. The ritual, ancient beyond measure, may unconsciously echo an understanding of resonance long forgotten. When thousands move in synchronized motion, they create measurable vibrations in the ground and air, waves that radiate outward like ripples on water. The Kaaba becomes a conductor, a resonant chamber powered by human intention. Perhaps the ritual itself sustains the site's energy, keeping the ancient frequency alive through devotion. The black stone's role within this geometry is enigmatic. It is positioned precisely where the Kaaba's energy lines converge, the focal point of its resonance. In ancient terms, it might have been the capstone, a material capable of storing or directing subtle energy. Modern physics recognizes that certain meteorites contain high concentrations of iridium and magnetite, metals that can generate electromagnetic fields. If the black stone indeed came from the heavens, it could have functioned as a natural energy catalyst. Myth, once again, aligns with this possibility. Islamic tradition recounts that the black stone was once pure white, but turned dark after absorbing the sins of humanity, a poetic metaphor that may describe energy absorption rather than moral stain. In that sense, the Kaaba could be viewed not merely as a place of worship, but as a living device, a harmonizer of human consciousness with the Earth's field, renewing planetary balance through collective resonance. What is striking is how closely the Kaaba's geometry resembles the proportions of the Great Pyramid. The ratio of height to base, when extended from its cubic form through its surrounding mosque's dimensions, follows the same harmonic constant found in Egypt, China, and Mexico. Its position on Earth, when plotted in relation to those sites, completes a near-perfect grid line connecting Giza, Jerusalem, and Teotihuacan. The line runs through the Red Sea Rift, one of the planet's most magnetically charged zones. Could the Kaaba mark the final surviving node of the global network, the one that remained active when all others fell silent? Some Sufi mystics have long believed so. In esoteric Islamic cosmology, Mecca is described as the axis mundi, the pivot of the world, the point around which the heavens revolve. The 7 circuits of pilgrimage symbolize the 7 layers of the sky, the 7 frequencies of creation. In this view, the Kaaba is not simply a monument, but the Earth's heart, a harmonic bridge between dimensions. The house of God is not a metaphor. It is a resonance chamber connecting the physical and spiritual fields of existence. If we strip away religious language and read these traditions through the lens of physics, an astonishing picture emerges. A structure perfectly designed to interact with the Earth's electromagnetic field, aligned to celestial geometry, powered by collective motion. The Kaaba may be the last functioning fragment of a system that once encircled the globe. Its energy, maintained not by machines, but by millions of synchronized hearts, still pulses through the ground. Some ancient sources even imply that the Kaaba's foundation predates humanity. The historian al-Masudi, writing in the 10th century, claimed that the original structure existed before the flood, built by beings who worshipped in light, not in form. That language, translated literally, describes resonance, energy rather than image. In this sense, the Kaaba might not have been rebuilt by Abraham, but restored, reactivated on the ruins of a structure whose purpose he no longer fully understood. The black stone's extraterrestrial origin, if confirmed, would tie it directly to the ancient stones from heaven worshipped worldwide. The fragments of the benben, the omphalos, and even the meteoric iron found in Tutankhamun's dagger all come from the same class of celestial material, nickel-iron meteorites rich in magnetism. These were not random relics. They were chosen, revered, and integrated into sacred architecture as conductors between heaven and earth. The ancients may have recognized in them not just divine symbolism, but literal power. Modern science now rediscovers what ancient priests may have known intuitively, that certain metals and minerals can channel energy, store frequency, and influence fields of consciousness. Quartz, basalt, magnetite, and meteorite, the same substances found in pyramids, temples, and megaliths, the same materials that form the Kaaba's heart. So the question arises, why did the rest of the network fall silent while the Kaaba endured? Perhaps because it was never abandoned. Unlike Giza or Teotihuacan, Mecca's site was continuously revered. The ritual survived, stripped of its original context, but preserved in practice. The people may have forgotten the science, but they remembered the movement, the sound, the geometry. In doing so, they kept the resonance alive. Every year, as millions circle the Kaaba, the ancient pulse continues, a planetary heartbeat disguised as devotion. The Black Pyramid Network, if it ever existed, may no longer hum through stone and crystal, but through the rhythm of humanity itself. In that sense, the Kaaba is not merely the last relic, it is the living continuation. The network, then, was never meant to be technological in the way we imagine. It was spiritual engineering, a system designed to synchronize human emotion with planetary vibration. Each node, Egypt, Nubia, China, Indonesia, Antarctica, Hyperborea, Tartaria, and Mecca, represented a stage of descent and remembrance, a bridge between cosmic order and earthly life. When the floods came, when the axis shifted, when knowledge fractured into myth, the network faded, but one heart kept beating. Perhaps that was the plan all along. Perhaps the builders of the old world knew that everything else would crumble, that pyramids would fall and empires vanish, but that the rhythm of prayer, the resonance of movement and sound, would endure. The network's final safeguard was not stone, but the human soul. And now, as the world begins to awaken to vibration, frequency, and harmony once more, the cycle turns again. The hum beneath the deserts, the tremors in the poles, the fluctuations in the Earth's resonance, all of it may be the faint reactivation of a forgotten system. When pilgrims circle the Kaaba, they move as one body around a single axis, mirroring the motion of planets around the sun, electrons around a nucleus, galaxies around their center. It is the oldest pattern in existence, the spiral of creation. The ancients knew this, and they encoded it in stone so that we would one day remember. The final question remains, was the Kaaba the end of the network, or its rebirth? If the ancient resonance was ever to return, it would begin here, at the heart of the world, beneath a cube of black stone that hums when touched by millions of hands. And if one listens closely, in the hush before dawn, when the desert air is still and the earth cools beneath the stars, one might hear it, that low, eternal vibration, the pulse of a planet that has never truly gone silent. But the story is not over. There is one final destination, one last horizon beyond stone and myth, the realm where the network's resonance meets the cosmos itself. The great cycle turns toward the stars, and there, perhaps, lies the truth of where it began and where it will return. Above us, the stars turn slowly, ancient and unchanging, or so it seems. Yet the heavens, like the earth, are in constant motion. Their alignment drifts with time, precessing across millennia in a vast cosmic rhythm that mirrors the pulse of the planet itself. Every pyramid, temple, and monument built by the ancients points not merely to the horizon, but to specific stars: Orion, Sirius, the Pleiades, Canopus, celestial markers of a system too vast to be coincidence. Perhaps the Black Pyramid network was not only a planetary grid, but a galactic one, a bridge between Earth and the cosmos, designed to keep both in harmony. In every civilization that ever studied the sky, the same constellations recur. In Egypt, Orion was Osiris, the gate of rebirth. In Mesopotamia, it was the shepherd of Anu. In China, the same stars formed the White Tiger, guardian of the West. The alignment between Orion's belt and the three great pyramids of Giza is nearly perfect, their positions matching the stars Alnitak, Alnilam, and Mintaka as they appeared around 10,500 BCE, the very epoch when geological and mythological evidence suggests a great flood changed the face of the earth. It is as if the builders encoded in stone a timestamp, a celestial coordinate marking both the beginning and the end of an age. If that age ended in catastrophe, the collapse of the global resonance system, then perhaps the alignments were meant not as monuments, but as reminders, beacons for future civilizations to find their way back. Across the world, these alignments form a map not of land, but of sky. The Black Pyramid network may have been designed as a mirror of the heavens, a terrestrial reflection of cosmic order. When the earth vibrated in tune with the stars, harmony prevailed. When that balance broke, chaos followed. Consider this. The precession of the equinoxes completes a full cycle roughly every 25,120 years, the so-called Great Year. Divide it into segments, and you find repeating patterns of civilizations rise and fall, each lasting around 12,000 to 13,000 years. These intervals correspond eerily to the timing of global cataclysms: floods, ice ages, magnetic shifts. Could the ancients have known this cycle, encoding warnings in their architecture for those who would come after? If so, we may be approaching the same turning point once more. At Teotihuacan, the Avenue of the Dead points to the setting of the Pleiades, a cluster of stars associated in almost every culture with rebirth and the return of knowledge. In the myths of the Maya, the Pleiades mark the time when the world tree realigns with the cosmos, allowing communication between Earth and the heavens. In Egyptian lore, the same cluster was called the Seven Hathors, guides of souls returning to the stars. And in Japan, where Yonaguni sleeps beneath the sea, the Pleiades are known as Subaru, unite. The message is consistent across continents and languages: unity through resonance, return through alignment. Modern astrophysics tells us that stars emit not only light, but vibration, electromagnetic frequencies that travel through space. The ancients may have known this not through measurement, but through perception. To them, the stars were not distant suns, but tones in a universal symphony, each influencing the Earth's magnetic field. The pyramids, tuned to specific frequencies, could have acted as receivers, capturing stellar resonance and channeling it through the planet's crystalline crust. In this way, Earth itself became part of a cosmic orchestra, the great instrument of creation. When the balance was lost, whether through celestial impact, magnetic reversal, or human interference, the music stopped. But the stones remember the song. In 1998, astronomers studying radio frequencies from deep space discovered a pattern, repeating bursts of energy arriving in harmonic intervals. Some originate from the region of Orion, others from the direction of the Pleiades. They are not signals in the conventional sense, but pulses, rhythmic bursts like the heartbeat of distant stars. Coincidence, perhaps. Or perhaps the universe itself is resonating, echoing the same frequencies the ancients once harnessed. If the Black Pyramid network mirrored the heavens, then each site may have been tuned to a specific star. Giza to Orion, Teotihuacan to the Pleiades, Xi'an to Vega, Gunung Padang to Sirius, Antarctica to Canopus, the Kaaba to the galactic center, the hidden axis around which our galaxy turns. In this configuration, Earth becomes not an isolated world, but a node in a cosmic network, a resonant planet harmonizing with its stellar neighbors. The myths hint at this unity. The Egyptians believed the souls of the pharaohs traveled through the star shafts of the Great Pyramid to join Osiris in Orion. The Dogon people of Mali spoke of beings from Sirius who taught humanity about vibration and geometry. The Sumerians wrote of the Anunnaki, those who came from the sky, bringing knowledge of the Me, the laws of cosmic order. Each story is a different translation of the same truth, that the ancients saw the cosmos not as distant space, but as a living system of frequency and light. When we look at the stars today, we see fire. They saw communication. Perhaps that communication continues. In 2019, researchers detected a sudden increase in the Earth's Schumann resonance, the planet's natural frequency, fluctuating from its stable 7.83 Hz to nearly 40 Hz for brief periods. The cause remains unknown. Some scientists attribute it to solar storms, others to atmospheric changes. But the shift coincides with a surge in magnetic activity along ancient ley lines, the same regions where the old pyramids and temples stand. Could it be that the network, long dormant, is awakening? If so, what is awakening with it? There is a theory, whispered among both mystics and physicists, that consciousness itself is tied to planetary resonance, that human awareness oscillates in harmony with the Earth's magnetic field. When that field fluctuates, perception changes, evolution accelerates. The ancients may have used their monuments to stabilize this resonance, maintaining not only environmental balance but mental coherence across humanity. The fall of the Old World, then, was not merely physical. It was cognitive, a loss of collective synchronization. The Black Pyramid network may have been less a power grid and more a consciousness grid, a planetary mind. If this is true, its reawakening would not bring technology but remembrance. Humanity would begin to dream again in the same frequency as the Earth, hearing the hum beneath the noise of modern life. The flood, the ice, the fire, all would fade before that one truth, that everything vibrates and everything is connected. The ancient builders, whoever they were, may have foreseen this. Their monuments point not only backward to their age, but forward to ours. They knew that when the stars realigned, when the same constellations returned to their ancient positions, the world would be ready to remember. That time is now. The precessional clock is turning. Orion rises again in the same sky as it did 12,000 years ago. The great year completes its circle, and so we find ourselves where they once stood, gazing upward, wondering what comes next. Perhaps the Black Pyramid network was never meant to last forever. Perhaps it was a seed planted in stone, waiting for the next cycle to germinate. The seed does not mourn the forest that came before, it waits for light. As the magnetic field shifts and the Earth's hum grows louder, perhaps we are hearing the first stirrings of that new forest, a civilization not built of stone and metal, but of resonance, unity, and memory. We have been taught that history moves forward, but the ancients knew it moves in circles. Every age ends, every song fades, every network sleeps, only to awaken again when the stars return to their rightful place. The question is not whether the Black Pyramid network existed, but whether we will recognize it when it returns. For it may not reappear as structures of stone, but as patterns of consciousness, as humanity learning once again to live in harmony with the Earth's frequency, to build not monuments, but understanding. When you stand beneath the night sky and the constellations rise in their ancient order, listen carefully. Beneath the wind, beneath the hum of cities, there is a sound, low, steady, and eternal. It is the same tone the pyramids once amplified, the same pulse that moves through oceans and blood, the same rhythm the universe breathes. The ancients called it the voice of the earth. Perhaps the Black Pyramid network was never lost. Perhaps it has always been here, waiting, not for rediscovery, but for recognition. As the journey ends, we return to where it began, a single question whispered through time. What if the monuments of the old world were not messages from the past, but invitations from the future? The answer lies not in the stones, nor in the stars, but in the resonance between them. And in that resonance, in the space between silence and sound, the truth waits, timeless and patient. Keep an open mind, and see you next time.